Good morning, night, or afternoon, and welcome to the Snapcast. I'm Snapcap, and today I'll be showing you a couple of tips and tricks for the medic in Team Fortress 2, and I reckon it's appropriate since the new quick fix buff has left the TF2 servers more populated with incompetent medical professionals than the entire cast of Grey's Anatomy. So, without further ado, these are my baby steps with medic, and I hope—
Medic! Doc! Come on, man!
Oh my— Shut up! Before making the decision to take on the role of the team's medic, you first have to accept that the medic is one of the most picked on classes in the game. Because of your hugely important role for the team's success with regards to just about any objective, spies like to stab you in the back, snipers like to shoot you in the head, scouts like to shoot you in your everywhere, and soldiers like to shoot in the vague direction of your feet. But because the medic has a measly 150 health, all of what I just described will still leave you deader than Blutarch and Redmond Man. Anyway, the vulnerable class that he is, when trying to improve your medic game, you first have to consider one very important and rather blaring setback when it comes to his trusty, logic-defying, medicine-spouting sidearm, the medigun. Because you should be spending the vast majority of your time with the thing in hand, keeping your fellow teammates at their full 150% overheal capacity, oh, that's a thing you can do by the way, you'll be left less capable of defending yourself than a newborn baby. Possibly less so.
Yippee-ki-yay, mother.
As obvious as this sounds, this means that while wielding his signature medigun, the medic has to rely on the somewhat dubious at best skills of his fellow teammates to protect him from the advancing hordes of crazed, profanity-spouting Scotsmen, Russians, and Americans that make up the other team's offense. So for the love of Gaben, use any available cover while healing. Even the human meat shield that is your nearest brother-at-arms will do nicely. Though you'll doubtlessly feel deeply emasculated tiptoeing around the battlefield hunched behind the nearest heavy weapons guy, you'll come out of the situation smelling like roses. Or at the very least alive, and smelling of sulfur. It's worth noting though that this tactic must only be considered as a last resort, as you should be able to set up a nifty little impromptu medical clinic on the battlefield operating 24/7 around the corner from your nearest objective. Of course, you shouldn't get too settled into any particularly comfortable cover, because the gods of TF2 have a nasty habit of crushing all your dearest hopes and dreams with a random crit holy mackerel. Just cuz. And thus you always have to be ready to make a hasty, if somewhat uncourageous retreat. It's true that the medic certainly isn't a class for all you charming roguish action hero types out there who seek your thrills on the front lines of battle with an assault rifle in one hand, a grenade in the other, and the curious ability to regenerate health if you sit behind cover and have time out for a while. No, the medic is more for you sociable types who get your thrills from lending a helping hand to all your bestest friends in the whole wide world. Namely the charming roguish action hero types who got their asses handed to them because they forgot they were playing TF2 and not the latest installment of Cry of Responsibility Current Affairs Combat 5. What that overextended analogy means in essence is that if you ever do feel inclined to play medic, the paradigm of humanity that you are, it's basically your responsibility to keep yourself alive, so you can in turn keep the rest of your team alive. Ideally for the rest of the game. Though what I'm about to say should be a given, for all you woefully unequipped TF2 newcomers out there, this means that you should seriously consider doing a spot of hasty backpedaling if you see simultaneously a horde of hungry-looking enemy pyros and a distinct absence of any of your own teammates for several miles. More importantly, however, is that as the medic you also need to keep your feet moving even when you have your fellow murderous mercenary bros to back you up. The trick to staying alive as medic, and really as most classes, is to duck, jump, weave left, weave right, wax on and wax off, and so on and so on. Another plus that allows you to be more efficient while doing so than other classes when playing medic is that as long as you keep the left mouse button depressed, your medigun will steadfastly lock onto your nearest and now fully buffed pal, leaving said pal to furiously mow down the opposition while you bounce around gaily in the background. Though these methods for life elongation work fairly decently against players who aren't TF2 prodigies going for a spot of pub stomping, you're probably thinking that they'll only keep you out of trouble for around about the next 60 seconds or so. What's that I hear you say? Around about the next 60 seconds or so? How convenient, because that's the exact amount of time it should take for you to build up your Uber. What's that I hear you say? What is this Uber of which you speak? Well, the Uber is basically the most awesome feat of impossibility in all of TF2, as it can make both the medic and whatever lucky bastard he happens to be filling with medicine at the time invincible for a few seconds. I'd make an attempt to describe the science behind this impossibly implausible feat, but frankly, I've got no frickin' idea. Except for some reason I think it has something to do with a mega baboon heart transplant.
Kill me later.
Moving right along, I'm gonna have to say that the Uber is crazily effective when it comes to taking out some of the toughest targets in the game, including sentry nests, and sentry nests. Oh, and it's pretty effective when it comes to cutting huge swathes through the enemy team, whose only really tactically valid response is to run away with their proverbial tail between their legs. Speaking of heavies, when UberCharging, or healing in any way for that matter, you should remember that your services do not belong solely to the same crazed minigun-wielding communist for the whole freaking round. You know which one I'm talking about, right? The heavy who wasted all his minigun ammo trying to kill a jumpy scout, and is now wasting your precious UberCharge brandishing a family business? After realizing this, you may be thinking that you're justified in ditching the whole tiresome minigun healing nonsense in exchange for your kick-ass syringe gun. How cool is it? It's got all them syringes and they fire so quick like pew 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 pew. First of all, put it away. You have no business using that thing as your primary weapon, even though it is your primary weapon. Second of all, the battle medic is about as reliable a damage dealer as something that isn't a reliable damage dealer. You get the gist of what I'm saying, though. Though it's daft to go about using it exclusively, I must admit it's worth using every once in a while, as well as your trusty bonesaw, if you're gonna get a sure kill on a weakened enemy. Oh, and try using it on a W+M1 pyro. It's super effective! And there you go. What I showed you were a few of my baby steps with Medic and TF2 and the ways that I learned to fix them. However, disclaimer time. It should be noted that what I've showed you here today are by no means the full set of tips and tricks required to play Medic like a pro. Really, the next step is to go out there and play some TF2 for yourself. They just made a big-ass update, so why not? Anyway, I'm glad you stopped by. Tune in to the Snapcast again for more gameplay MacGuffins like this. I'm Snapcap, and I'll catch you later.